Hi, welcome back to my channel. So we are back to reading. We are on chapter 3. I was thinking sometimes I was feeling like, should I continue just reading? Maybe I'll record a video when I want to continue reading with you guys, or I should just be consistent that every chapter I'll be reading here. I feel like let me just read every chapter on here, because now I've gotten to a point where I'm very interested to know how this story pans out, because I ended up reading the end of the book and I'm like, now I'm interested. Now I want to know what happens, because here it seems like this girl ends up dating the guy that she thought was her bully. So Peter McGowan. So I don't know, I can't remember the name of her the name of the author or how she's called. I've forgotten. But I can remember Peter McGowan, who Peter McGowan is. So I'm interested now to read the whole book with you. So let's continue. The good thing about this novel is every chapter starts with a quote. Let me bring you guys closer. And I'm trying to figure out the name I'll call you instead of calling you guys. I don't know. I've not figured out the name yet, but until we figure out the name of this community, of how we're gonna like be identifying ourselves as, I'll just use guys, but I don't like using guys. Anyway, as I've said, the good thing about this novel is every chapter starts with a quote. So let me read the quote. The trouble with trouble is that it always starts out like fun. And this quote is anonymous. They did not say who said the quote. So let's continue. Chapter 3. We are reading a book by Tracy Kelly, Murder at Longburn. So yeah, let's continue. I do not function properly until I have had at least 2 cups of coffee. So the next morning was a bit of a blur. I got up early to help Aunt Winnie with the breakfast, which was a yeoman's task. Yeoman's task. What's a yeoman's task? Oh, and if you're new here, I write down new words that I don't know what they mean, and I search it up. So that's how I'm going to build my vocabulary. That's how I'm building my vocabulary. So I don't know what's a yo. I don't know what's the meaning of that. Anyway, let's continue. Which was a yeoman's task. Given that my bed was warm, the room was chilly, and I had a faint headache, somehow I forced myself out of the bed, threw on some clothes, and headed downstairs. Hearing movements in the kitchen and assuming it was Aunt Winnie, I pushed the heavy door open greeting that with a greeting that, while not exactly cheerful, was as close as I was going to get at this hour of the morning. To my surprise, it was Peter who stood before me. Whatever his greeting might have been, it caught in his throat at the sight of my feet. I followed his gaze. Brilliant. I was wearing my bunny slippers, stuck my chin out, silently daring him to say something. Late night, he finally choked out. Not in the way you think. I shout back. Actually, I have no thoughts on the matter one way or another, he said. But next time, you might want to keep it down. This is a B&B, after all, not a frat house. Frat house. What is a frat house? I thought you had no thoughts on that matter, I said tartly. Tart? I said tartly. I said tartly. There was no point in trying to explain that I had been attacked by a crazed cat. Now, not without coffee anyway. Thankfully, Aunt Winnie entered the kitchen, putting a halt to our conversation. Other than a brief hello to Peter and a casual, nice slippers, babe, to me, nothing much more was said by any of us until I heard Peter humming. These boots are made for walking. I retaliated by humming, if I only had a brain. Finally, Aunt Winnie had enough of our dwelling and began belting out the lyrics to Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train. After that, we all worked quickly, getting the simple breakfast of coffee, banana nut muffins, and sliced melon and strawberries ready. At some point, Lady Catherine wandered in, no doubt lured by the smell of food, by ta- tacit arrangement, by tacit agreement. Pake na nishindwa kusoma. By tacit agreement, I ignored her and she me. Instead, she would her furry little body sinuously around Aunt Winnie's ankles and purred like a locomotive. Aunt Winnie loaded the first breakfast tray and defeatedly pushing the door jar with her foot. Deftly. And deftly. Huh? And deftly pushing the door ajar with her foot, breezed through the open doorway with it. Minutes later, with slightly less flourish, I followed her out with my own tray. As I passed into the dining room, I heard Joan and Henry talking, their voices low. There is nothing to worry about. It will be fine, Henry soothed. But what if something goes wrong? It won't. I hope so. I just can't wait until it's over, she replied, her voice anxious. They stopped talking when they saw me and resumed eating. Henry made faint grunts of appreciation as he ate. I pretended that I hadn't heard their conversation, much less Henry's enthusiasm for his breakfast. I had made a ruckus that night before, and now I was padding around in tattered pink bunny slippers. I didn't want to add eavesdropper to add eavesdropper to my list of bizarre behavior. The rest of the morning went relatively quickly. After clearing the breakfast dishes, we made up the guests' beds and cleaned the bathrooms. I had time for a quick shower. Before helping Aunt Winnie with the dinner preparations, due to my pitiful cooking skills, I was assigned the simple task of chopping the vegetables and herbs. Aunt Winnie trinker items, handled the trickier, handled the trickier items like the gogzola, like the gog, huh? Gogzola. I don't know if it's gogzola, what? Gorgonzola. For the fillets and the dessert, her specialty chocolate ganache cake. The faint headache I had had earlier was now threatening to become a full-blown migraine. I didn't need to look out the window to know that the weather must be bad. That's the only time I get this kind of headaches. Even so, I was still surprised at the bleak intensity of the sky when I finally stole a moment and went out into the back garden. Dark, heavy clouds hung low in the air, blocking out all the smallest amount of light. A storm was definitely on the horizon, I thought, as I pulled my coat tightly around me and headed across the yard. The lawn stretched out ahead of me, a thin layer of ice covering the brown grass. To the right and left of me, enormous rose bushes, their tan branches now bare, formed a spiky border. In the distance, I could see the rough blue-green waters of Nantucket. Nantucket of Nantucket Sounds churning and rolling underneath white hats of foam. Off to one side stood a majestic and immense maple tree, under which sat a tall bird feeder. A white metal table, a bench, and several tall baked chairs. This arrangement may have made for a charming spot in the summer, but in the dead of winter it was terribly forlorn. Walking closer, I saw Joanne Anderson hunched in one of the chairs, staring out at the ocean with tears streaming down her face. Not wanting to intrude, I stepped back, snapping a branch. She raised her head at the sound and immediately wiped her face. "Are you okay?" I asked, before realizing the absurdity, realizing the absurdity of my question. Absurdity is absurd. Where? Absurdity of the question. Of course she wasn't. She was sitting in the cold, alone and crying. I'm sorry, I continued. I didn't mean to interrupt. I turned to leave. No, please, don't go. I'm just being maudlin. Would you like to sit down? She gestured to the bench. I sat down awkwardly. Here, I don't know if I'm coming down with a flu. I sat down awkwardly, not knowing what to say. Luckily, Joan was more in need of someone to talk to rather than someone to console her. I don't know what came over me, she said. I didn't intend to come out here and start sobbing like this, but after a few minutes, the tears just started. If it makes you feel any better, I was just thinking that the atmosphere was a little bit gloomy myself. Maybe so, she said with a half smile. But being here again after so many years has brought back a lot of memories. I grew up near here, but everyone I knew has either died or moved away. That's what I did. I moved to New York and started Miss Baxter's things of yore. That's how I met Henry, actually. Had had just inherited his business from his uncle. He was selling and I was buying. She paused. It's funny. I never thought I'd marry. I was quite prepared to live out my life alone. I wasn't some romantic I wasn't some romantic waiting for my white king. But Henry and I work well together. She nodded to confirm this thought. A second later, her face clouded over again. The truth is, this time of year is always hard for me. My sister died a few weeks before Christmas. Tears welled up in her eyes. We were so close. Our parents died when I was 17. You see, and God, Vicky was so strong. Even then, even then, she was only a few years older than me, but she just stepped in and took over. I would have completely fallen apart if it hadn't been for her. She made sure I went to college and had everything I needed. I adored her. And then one night, coming home, she had an accident and she broke off. Throughout throughout her painful narrative, Joan angrily clenched and unclenched her hands. They now lay limp in her lap. Sometimes I still can't believe she's gone. I knew I had no words that could possibly comfort her. So I reached out and took her hand. I don't know how long we sat like that, but after a while Joanne squeezed my hand and stood up. Thank you for listening, she said, tucking a strand of red hair behind her ear. I'd better go in now. She slowly made her way across the lawn back to the house. I stayed outside, thinking about Joanne's story and envying the closeness she shared with her sister. Ironically, my sister, Kit, also had a take charge attitude regarding my life. But unlike Joanne's situation, the trait did not foster closeness. In fact, it did just the opposite. I was wondering what this said about me when I was suddenly assailed by the acidic aroma of cigarette smoke. Silent. Turning in my seat, I poked my head around the large trunk to see who was there. Daniel was crossing the yard to where I sat. Bloody hell, he said, jumping back when he saw me. You scared the piss out of me. What are you doing sitting out here alone? It's beastly cold. He came over and sat down on the bench, casually throwing his arm on the seat behind me. My heart pounded like an adolescent schoolgirl's. Oh God. Next next my palms would probably begin to sweat. You smoke? I asked stupidly. He laughed. You didn't know already? Poor Jackie must be sleeping. I'm sure I told her just yesterday that I was decking out for a quick fag. I, s- I squatted with laughter. I squatted. Squatted. Eh. I sputtered. I sputtered with laughter. I think that you are forgetting that has an entirely different meaning on this side of the pond. Daniel paused, cocking his head at me. Oh, right, well, that does not that does explain Jackie's rather startled reaction. He shifted his gaze out to the rolling water. This really is a lovely property. I can see why Gerald was so upset to lose out on it. He was quite he was quite a moment. So what are you doing out here alone? Startled. 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 Hmm. Jamani, pronunciation of some words is work. Yo. Anyway, let's continue. He asked, dropping his voice to a conspirational whisper. Are you hiding from that Peter bloke? Or is it the cat? Neither. I just came out to get some air. I have an awful headache. Sorry to hear that. You are still coming tonight though, aren't you? Of course. Here, he said, moving closer. I can't stand to see a pretty girl in distress. He slid his hand up my back and kneaded the muscles in the neck. It was an odd sensation, relaxing and trying to restrain myself from lewd behavior. All at the same time. After a minute, I became aware that the mood had changed slightly. I don't know if I leaned back into him or if he pulled me, but suddenly I found myself in his arms. Hello, he said softly and leaned down towards me. Elizabeth, you have got to be kidding, I thought, as Aunt Winnie's voice floated out across the yard. Daniel sat back, the mood broken. Aunt Winnie's voice called out again, Elizabeth, are you out here? I stood up and waved. Over here. Oh, so the one who is narrating this story is called Elizabeth. The character is Elizabeth. Hmm. I stood up and waved. Over here. Oh, there you are. Can you help me? For a moment, she disappeared back into the house. Hoping my face wasn't ouch with disappointment, I said, duty calls. Thanks for the neck rub. Ouch. Ouch is an expression. Awash. Wasn't awash. Is it awash? Is it ouch? with disappointment. I said, duty calls, thanks for the neck rub. Thanks for the neck rub. Daniel gave me a small smile and felt my insides liquefy in response. Anytime, he said. Maybe we can continue our conversation later. It's customary to start the new year with a kiss in the States too, isn't it? I think I said something clever like "Oomph" before I stumbled towards the house. Around 4, a black van pulled into the driveway. Embezzled on the side in a large red letter where the words "Join us for dinner and a murder." Clearly, the entertainment had arrived. A young man with sandy-colored hair and round glasses alighted first. He introduced himself as Eric, and he seemed to be the leader of the small troop. There were 5 of them in all, 3 men and 2 women. Eric quickly made the introduction. There was Tom, a muscular man with a shaved head who appeared to be in his mid-40s, and Stephen, a tall, almost painfully thin young man in his early 20s. The women were as different as a night and day. Karen was matronally looking. Burnett with a sober, serious face. Susie was almost as blonde as she was buxom. What is buxom? And I seriously doubted if either attribute was God-given. After Antoine and I showed them their rooms, Eric went over the plan for the evening. Basically, we'll circulate among your real guests, Eric said, in a thick southern drawl, but we'll all be in character, so to speak. Tom and Karen are playing a married couple, as are Stephen and Susie. I play an old school friend of Stephen's. The basic premise is that both Karen and Stephen suspect that Tom and Susie are having an affair. I play the concerned friend. Without giving too much away, various characters will appear to drink too much, flirt, and fight with one another. Ultimately, this will lead to the apparent death of one of them. At this point, the real guests will be asked to band together in an attempt to solve the crime and identify the so-called murder. We have done this bit several times, and from start to finish, it usually takes about 2 to 3 hours. So depending on when you want to start, we can be done in plenty of time for everyone to celebrate the new year. I'd like it to end around 11:30, said Antoine. That should give everyone time to enjoy themselves before ringing in the new year. Our guests will probably start arriving around 8, so let's plan to start your show around 8:30. Dinner will be served in the dining room at 9. Sounds good, Eric said. I look forward to it. Antoine smiled and excused herself. So, I turned to Eric after Antoine had left. Do you guys perform this dinner theaters full time, or do you have other jobs? Eric laughed. God, no. We'd all starve to death if this was our only income. No, this is just a part-time gig until we find real jobs or get discovered. Steve and I started the group about a year ago. We are in film school together. Steve met Karen in one of his acting classes, and Tom is a retired cop I met at the gym. He's always wanted to be an actor. And Susie, Steve met Susie at some party. At the time we were looking for another woman to round out the troupe, and she seemed a perfect fit for some of the glitzier characters. Does she attend film school with you too? Susie, no. She just wants to be in films. I don't think she necessarily wants to direct them. Peter entered the room. Hey, Coco Puff, he began. I glared at him. Sorry, he smirked. I mean, Elizabeth, can I get your help in the dining room? Clenching my teeth into a sensible semblance of a smile. I excused myself to Eric and exited the room in what I hoped was a dignified manner. Once we were in the reception area, I swung around to face Peter. My head was pounding, although it was hard to tell if it was from my headache or just sheer frustration. Look, I said, is it too much to ask that you stop calling me that name? In case you haven't noticed, I'm no longer some sad little girl who is addicted to a stupid cereal. His eyebrows pulled together. What's the matter with you? He said. Don't tell me I interrupted another one of your conquests. Poor Daniel will be crushed. As I had just met Eric, I took his comment as mockery. My jaw tightened in anger. Seriously, I said through gritted teeth. Don't you think we're a bit old for this? Peter peered down at me suspiciously. What is the matter with your mouth? I get lockjaw in cold weather, I said sarcastically. Really? My violent effort for a devastating comeback resulted in one word. Yeah. Pithy, but still lame. No doubt I'd think of the perfect comeback hours from now, when it would do me any earthly good. What did they call it? It was the French of staircase suites. My mind drew yet another blank. Pathetic. I couldn't even think of the damned word. Maybe Mr. Collins had the right idea after all in writing down his little bondsmots in adventure. Aunt Winnie came into the room. Oh God, Peter, you found her. Come on, you two. I need help in getting the dining room ready. Mentally composing aerobic comments for future use, I followed Aunt Winnie and Peter into the dining room. The man was seemingly impossible. None of this was doing much for my headache, and I forced myself to concentrate on what Aunt Winnie wanted me to do. The long, narrow dining room ran ran front to back along the whole right side of the house. Aunt Winnie wanted to split the room into two sections, one for the tables and one for the cocktails and dancing. So Peter and I moved the tables to one side. I'd like there to be 6 at a table, she said, but we are having 17 guests total, so we'll need to put 5 at one of the tables. I did a quick count in my head. Aunt Winnie, I think we only have 16 guests. No, dear, it's 17. I have a little surprise for you tonight. I looked questionably at Peter, but he seemed equally in the dark. My stomach clutched. Aunt Winnie's, Aunt Winnie's surprises were famous, or perhaps infamous was more appropriate word. I knew better than to try to cajole it out for her. Cajole. Yeah? She could keep us she could keep a secret better than anyone else I knew. It was a trait I found quite vexing, actually. Her announcement made, and Twinnie quickly changed the subject. Elizabeth, you help me put on the tablecloths. Peter, would you mind making those wonderful napkins, the ones that look like roses? My face must have registered surprise because he blushed and mumbled, it's a trick my mom taught me years. Fascinated, I watched as he folded the heavily starched napkins into a intricate shape that did indeed resemble a rose. For the centerpiece, Aunt Winnie brought out a basket of white roses and small silver bowls. I saw this idea in Martha Stewart's magazine, she told me, filling the bowls with water. We floated the flowers in them. Now, all we have to do is sprinkle the table with this silver confetti and we are done, she said. What do you want to do for the bar? Peter asked. Let's use the sideboard, she said. Elizabeth, help me move it to the front of the room. I think that will work just fine. Peter, I'd like you to act as bartender. If that's all right. Elizabeth, I'm leaving you in charge of the horse divorce train. After completing all the last minute tasks necessary for any party, we went to our room to get ourselves ready. As I walked up the stairs, my foot hit something. Looking down, I saw it was a watch. I was reaching down to pick it up when Henry appeared at the top of the stairs. When he saw me holding the watch, an expression of relief crossed his face. Oh God, he said, you found it. Just this second, it was on the stairs, I said. As I neared him, I reached out my hand, the watch hanging face down. On the back was an inscription. Without consciously meaning to, I read the looping words. To Henry, all my love. To Henry, all my love, V. Raising my eyes to his, I saw that his face was flushed. Quickly taking the watch from me, he mumbled, it was a gift from my first wife. It's very nice. A proud smile tugged at his lips. Thank you. It is a handsome piece. Even Miss Dubois commented on it. Even Miss Dubois commented on it. Oh, yes, it is quite valuable to me, he said before hurrying down the hall. I was left to wonder if his sentiment for the watch lay in its origin or Miss Dubois' praise. After taking a shower and drying my hair, I unpacked my black sheath. It was very fancy, far from it, actually, but it was the only decent dress I owned. My dark brown shoulder-length hair tends to get frizzy, so I put it up in a chigon. What is a chigon? Chignon. Is it chignon? In a chignon. I don't generally wear much makeup, but in as much as it was New Year's Eve, and I'd be seeing Daniel, I made an exception. I studied my reflection in the mirror, wondering if I'd overdone it. I'd attempted to create a smoky effect with my eyeshadow, but was unsure if I'd merely produced a look that suggested malnutrition. After a few adjustments, I finally headed downstairs. Pausing on the landing, I looked out the window. Heavy, fat flakes of snow swirled and danced against a backdrop of white Christmas lights. The storm had finally arrived. And that's it for our chapter 3. Oh my god. In chapter 2, I didn't have a lot of words to research on, but in chapter 2, so in chapter 3 we have added more words. And you can remember in chapter 1 is where I found a lot of words that there are some that I've not yet researched on, but will definitely do. So yeah, that's it for our reading of the day. We will catch up later when I'm gonna be reading chapter 4. Yeah, and that's it. I'm about to go live, so, and I told myself before I go live, I have to read so that I can go live later. So let me go live and I will catch up with you guys later once I'm updating you on how my live streaming was. And I'm here to say thank you for keeping up with this journey and showing up and just watching my videos and listening to me reading a novel. Okay, so yeah, thank you for being here, for watching, and please don't fail to like the video. Just support me by liking. I love that you're showing up, but also support me by liking the video. It means a lot to me in this journey. Anyway, we'll catch up later. Toodles.